presentation today.
Ki ketsa mo president ne matamela le ke le motho a dumedisa o di sebedisa kaofela ke nna Siko SMG the head girl wa Morris ka 1975 yeah I didn't stay long, you know. We left the country, things were boiling, but Tsietse was my classmate. When we did Form 4, a fierce debater. Yeah, but of course, I'm not here to talk about me and Tsietse or anything like that. I'm just giving you context. I'm very, very happy to be a part of this 8th memorial lecture. I missed all the others, for the simple reason that I was also outside the country once again, representing you, my people. Yes, I'm very grateful to the organizers, Bo Omri, that they kept on asking us to come back to Morris. This is not the Morris we left behind. Morris was very small, much, much smaller. We didn't have this hall. I was passing over there, they said it's a music block. We had none of that. And to see that some of the things we were fighting for have been actually attended to is a very, very wonderful thing. Now, I know myself when I'm sitting there and the MC is talking forever that I become very agitated. So without wasting any time, I'm going to ask Pastor Sello Makoka to please give us the opening prayer. Is he here? Oh, Rawonara. Please welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Ambassador, to the family of Mashinini, and our honored guest. People sometimes, it's so sad when one comes back here, thinking back on those days that one was a student here. But also on the same side, I'm also happy that I'm able to see some of the faces that were here together up until on that fateful day, the 16th of June, 1976. We never thought that that day would become a historical day, both nationally and internationally. We thought we were just doing something, justice to the system, because our education at that time was not the education that will take a black child to the next level. It was just an education that will just keep us to be drawers of water and hewers of wood. But then, Tsietse was there and led us. And I'm happy that, Ambassador, you mentioned that yes, he was the best of the debaters, and of which I'm so sad that today's schools do not have debating teams. But nevertheless, it's something that our authorities will think about. Before we take our prayer, I would like us all to stand and acknowledge those who have passed by, who are no longer with us. Just to bow our heads in memory of those who passed away. Thank you. May we still remain standing. Before we start everything, it's right that we invite the Lord to be part and parcel of this occasion, and also to grace this occasion. Thandi, as always, lead us with a song, because you used to. Thank you. Let us pray. In the name of God, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Lord Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, all-knowing, all-seeing, we kneel before you, merciful, loving God. We bow our heads at the throne of your heavenly kingdom. Lord, we pray for all those who are homeless today, those who are less fortunate, and for the families who are searching for a place to live. God, you love us and the world so much that you gave up your only Son so that everyone who believes in him may not be lost but have eternal life. Today, as we gathered here together to commemorate the 8th memorial lecture of Tsietse Mashinini, who, like your trusted righteous servant Moses, led a student of this great institution, Morris Isaacson High School, and other schools in defiance of the barbaric, brutal, apartheid Bantu education system, and took to the streets of Soweto to unchain themselves and to seek a better equal education for all black children of South Africa. God help me, God, as we remember him and all those who have sacrificed their lives, our teachers, our families, who defied the apartheid system and laid down their lives, teach us to become who we are today. Father, hear our prayers as a family gathered here today before, in mercy and love, unite all the children wherever they are. Father, we now celebrate this memorial of our redemption. We call Christ's death, his descent among the dead, his resurrection and his ascension to your right hand, and looking for his coming in glory. Welcome into your kingdom, our departed brothers and sisters who have left this world. Remember, O Lord, all those who died in peace of Christ, and all the dead whose faith is only known to you alone. There we hope to share in your glory when every tear will be wiped away. God the Father, creator of heaven and earth, pour down your Holy Spirit as the world over us has spilled more blood. There are many killings, muggings, child and human trafficking, child slavery, drug and human trafficking. The world has abandoned and deserted you and your holy ways of life. In our country, South Africa, corruption has taken center stage, and those whom we have elected to lead us are not but working for themselves only. We humbly beg you, Lord, send down your Holy Spirit to heal our bleeding, beautiful country, to restore it to its former glory. Cry, the beloved country. May this great, once beautiful country of our forefathers find in Christ the way, the truth, and the life. May all its light shine over the world. May it always search for the kingdom of God and his justice. We ask you, Lord, to pray and bless all of us gathered here today, our families, the family of Mashinini, and our honored guests. We ask all this to Christ our Lord, your Son, who lives and reigns in unity with the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndati. Thank you for that prayer. I will call upon who is in charge, who's going to play us the national anthem. Yes, we're ready. Shall we stand for the national anthem? Thank you. be seated. Before I call Comrade Omri, I'd just like to share that in Zambia they have exactly the same national anthem as ourselves. The only difference is that they don't have this other part here, South Africa. They have that original one, Yarona, that we were singing in all the 3 languages. And when you arrive there and you are being received as the ambassador, as I was there, then it's just recorded, it's musical. Now you can't tell. You can't tell when they are playing the South African one and when they are playing the Zambian one. It just flows. It's like as if they are playing it 2 times. But I'm telling you, it's very, very touching because of our historical relations with that country, the country that looked after us during very, very bad times in South Africa. Ndade Omri, can you please come? Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Ambassador. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just a brief announcement that we have in terms of safety, in terms of any emergency. We've got the doors here, 2 and 2 there, and the one outside. So these doors can be opened anytime in case of any emergency. So when you're this side, you'll go out with those doors there. When you're this side, you'll go out with these doors. It's in case there's emergency. We hope there will not be any emergency. And when you go out there through that main door, the bathrooms are this side, the ladies and the gents, in case you need any biological needs, you know. And welcome to Maurice Isaacson. Thank you.
Thank you. For any program director, especially one that doesn't live in that community where they are program directing, this is the best part because then these people will not be overlooked, the guests, because someone here called Miss Lerato Hlalele is going to be the one to introduce us to all the guests and to welcome them all. So for me, it's a very special occasion to call you. Miss Hlalele, are you there in the front? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Program Director, Ambassador MG. Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed guests and speakers for today, the Honorable Dr. Padili Hosla and the Honorable Professor Zebulon Vilakazi, the Mashinini family, the Maurice Isaacson High School management team, our esteemed alumni of the school, my fellow learners of Maurice, our esteemed guests gathered here with us today, all the viewers joining us across our nation and the global community. My name is Lerato Hlalele and I am the RCL President of Maurice Isaacson High School for 2023, and I feel so privileged and honored to welcome you all to our 8th annual Tsietse Donald Tebogo Mashinini lecture. We welcome you all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Hlalele. When we were here, banyana ba ne ba sa apare marukhu. We had those tunics, what do you want? The navy blue. And because I was coming from another school in Lesotho, I was very upset because when I went to buy my uniform, you know, they are sold industrially in this country. They don't make them to fit you. You just go to those shops. They tell you, Mole Horekiswata, Morisi, Moritza, Orlando, and so on. So mine was so short. I mean, I'm tall. You know, but you know, as long as it fits the shoulders, size 36, And then the rest thing, bom manyu come. Aye. I used to be very uncomfortable. So hopefully if there were trousers, maybe it would have been better. And then at least waparali baiki gaudimo, ukavarabo manyu. Yeah, so it's good to see the improvements, really. It's very nice to come back home. I feel like a prodigal daughter. Yeah. Phuthanang Youth Trust representative, Miss Kamohelo Mtenjana. And those programs, there were not so many women either. Ako bonona basadi ba bangata jwang. Give her a hand, please.
Madam Program Director Ambassador Mchi, honorable guests, Dr. Badile Hosha and Professor Ziblon Vilagazi, members of Maurice Isaacson, alumni, the Mashinini family, Maurice Isaacson High Leadership and Learners, ladies and gentlemen, viewers at home, on all platforms, all protocol observed, consider yourself greeted. I stand here today and truly honored to be representing Phuthanang Youth Trust. My name is Gatlewa Kathy Mtenjani, a final year Bachelor of Social Science student in the University of Cape Town and also the convener of Student Parliament in Cape Town. I am a young resident of Jabavu and a proud beneficiary of Phuthanang Youth Trust. And therefore I stand here today to represent what is Phuthanang Youth Trust and what it stands for. The organization was established in 2004 in the community of Jabavu. Soweto by its founder, a formidable woman, Mama Ruth Manala, and spearheaded by young, outstanding visionaries, Mr. Mudisa Mutloba and Mr. Lance Manala. These individuals collectively saw it fit to drive the vision and mission of the organization, with its focus of empowerment, especially youth empowerment, to uplift and inspire the entire community of Central Western Jabavu. With their various progressive programs and initiatives, the aim of Phuthanang Youth Trust is to fully address the socio-economic challenges in and around the community of Jabavu. There's a saying that says, a safe community becomes a thriving community. That's one of the reasons and drives that PYT also supports members of this community policing forum by donating equipment they need to use in ensuring the community remains safe. When we are safe, therefore we strive. It is through the following pillars of PYT demonstrates their impact in the community and society. The first being education. The organization has to date offered 30 students with school support to further their studies at tertiary level to assist them to reach for their dreams. In 2022, a program aiming at addressing joblessness and encouraging career plus entrepreneurship by dependable strengths in collaboration with PYT, where we witnessed young people being motivated to reach their potential. We proudly saw Lerato Sibuka and Tato Sidibe, both program participants of this memorial lecture, reaching their highest potential. We now have certified emotional intelligence coach and a full-time radio presenter, all thanks to the doors opened by Phuthanang's effort. Science and education is another pillar in our staple of initiatives to drive the evolution of young people from early learning to grade 12. We have introduced coding and robotics classes, roping in 25 learners in Jabavu from schools within the area. The learners are equipped with coding and robotic skills. This will be followed with advanced and latest technologies in the robotic space, ensuring that young people of Jabavu are on par with their peers nationally and globally. With the launch of PYT skills development programs, Phuthanang yet again, through collaboration, has ensured that it champions the entrepreneurial spirit amongst the youth and the community to ensure that joblessness is eradicated. This is in line with the dreams of one fellow Jabavu resident and student who stood up and led the revolution of change and complacency in 1976. We, through our tireless efforts, are continuously inspired by the legacy of Tsietse Mashinini, and it is in this spirit that PYT for the past 8 years has supported the Tsietse Mashinini Memorial Lecture to further evoke his vision for the youth of today and to keep his name, legacy, and memory alive. Long live to the spirit of Tsietse Mashinini. Long live. Long live to the long live to the spirit of Tsietse Mashinini. Long live. Thank you, and thank you, PYT, for the opportunities you give us and embodying the spirit of Ubuntu. Thank you.
Wow, that was powerful. You know, we worry about the younger people. You know, we ask ourselves, are they going to still have the same fire? Maybe it's a wrong question, but nevertheless, we do it. We ask ourselves, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, are we going to remain in the same stalemate that we find ourselves in? Or are there going to be younger people who came after us, like yourself, who are going to take the baton and take it forward? And when we come to events like this and we see some of you perform the way you do, then we know that, no, our future is guaranteed. Naganjan. Naganjan. Mr. Manaka, are you still here? He did approach me about coming in earlier. Did he leave? He was sitting at the back there. No, he was right there at the back when he talked to me about coming earlier. Or maybe he left. Maybe he left. Okay, in that case, unfortunately, we have to swap. Professor Badile Khohla is not yet here. He's being delayed. So we will ask now our keynote address speaker, Professor Zebulon Zenzele Vilekazi, the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of the Witwatersrand, to come and speak to us. But before he does, I would like to take the honor of giving you his very, very brief CV. He was instrumental in establishing South Africa's first experimental high-energy physics research group at CERN. I'm sorry, I didn't even check what that is. CERN, maybe some of you know. Working on the Large Hadron Collider. These are physics terms that I never come across in my diplomatic life. But anyway, it's about energy, and we all know what the problems of energy are in our country today. He has fostered international collaboration research as director of Itemba Labs, the largest cyclotron facility in the Southern Hemisphere, where he initiated a flagship, which means something that is pioneer, of the rare isotope beam. Please don't ask me what those are. Project. In 2019, he played a role in securing a place for African academic partners in the development of practical applications through access to the IBM Quantum. Not the IBM you and I know, you know, the corporation. I think this must be another physics-related term like quantum. And in May 2020, Professor Zebulon Vilekazi was elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society of the UK. In case you think this is not a big achievement, unfortunately, when it comes to research, if you are not known internationally, if your work is not recognized by your peers internationally, you can research as much as you can locally, but that recognition that comes with being that kind of researcher will always escape you. Welcome to the more than 10 now Morris Isaacson students that I see here. I think it's a very good thing that you could also come. And in concluding my introduction of Professor Zebulon Vilakazi, I see we also have Professor Padile Khohla now with us. We see him on TV, so I can tell it's him. Yeah, unfortunately, we've swapped your place. Maybe it's fortunate. Then you can take your breath. Yes, Professor Vilakazi, please take the floor. Thank you so much.
When I was given an opportunity by my friend Mutlatsi, whom I've known since 1987, to be here, I ought to have been traveling at this time of the year, but you know, I didn't say no at all. Obviously, even if I said no, Mutlatsi would have even ensured that I come here. But it was actually a no-brainer. She was pushing through an open door. I'm a proud product, not of the school or of this neighborhood here, but on the other side of the Rand, Israel in Katlohong. I matriculated in Phuthanang High School. But I remember this day very well. I was about to turn 7 in 1976. And I'd like to dedicate this lecture to the mighty fallen whose fire reverberated to the Israel the next day and spread across the world. And as I'll say more about it, was led by people who did not fear, who had nothing to fear but fear itself. This is in their tribute. Before I started the formal part, I also made an observation as I drove here, seeing how impressive the school is, that students actually don't have to go all the way waking up at 5 in the morning, pupils or learners rather, don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning and go to schools in the suburbs, where actually they're already disadvantaged because they have started the day too early. And for a growing child, that's unhealthy. Therefore, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we build our own schools here, like we all did, in local townships, and one day some of you will have achievements that are beyond me, not because you have to go elsewhere, but you were educated in the community that nurtured you. And I think that's very, very important. And having said that as well, and also the across the road, I saw that as a memorial. And it's important that we venerate, we respect. Sibonisa inhlonipho umlando wethu. Disappointingly though, and I think something that will be on a negative side of my speech because nothing is positive, is 100% positive in life, is that whenever I travel abroad in Washington, I've got an overseas guest here, Arlington Memorial is venerated, the Vietnam Memorial is venerated. Some years ago I was in Moscow, the Memorial of the Fallen in the Great Patriotic War is venerated. It's like a church, it's a sanctuary. Go to all these great memorials in London, and statues of those British heroes don't need security. People know. They kneel at the altar of the missing, of the fallen ones. I looked at this. It's a beautiful memorial as I drove through. Of course, I never had the chance, but I found that it wasn't protected. I think, you don't need the security. I was disheartened. It's a challenge for you young people to take a moment, go there, have a look, soak it in. This is an eternal flame that burned in 1976, and it must be our sanctuary. We must respect it. So that is my message to you. Thank you. Program Director, Ambassador MG, distinguished guests, the fellow keynote speaker, Professor Lee Hotla, members of the Mashinini family, other guests, the alumni of the school who are here today, members of the broader Soweto community, some of whom are here, the learners of the school, our future. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zebulon Vilakazi. I'll just say a few words. I'm a professor, so I promise you this lecture won't be 50 minutes, because we normally give 50-minute lectures. I'll be briefer than that. We live in a time of great changes, a time of great challenges, and a time of great expectations and fears. We live in a country going through major challenges in a world of great uncertainties about what our future will be. There's a wisdom contained in an African proverb which rings through the ages, echoing in all sectors of society. It reverberates in local, regional, and global events. It goes as following. For tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for today. It is a class of 1976, which I might hasten to add, had a vision and daring to stand up to injustice. It was a time of great difficulties that required great people, great young people, to stand up and be counted, and they did. Now we face different challenges, and I'll address you. I was once in a position, to quote from a former British politician, upon stepping down as a prime minister, said, in the past, I was the future, now I'm the past. So I look at you, I do see my future, I'm not the past, you are the future. This world, because I'm going to address you, because you are the future. In a rapidly changing world, both qualifications, either vocational or academic qualifications, will be relevant for the country and this continent's growth. The choice that you'll make, Bantonabami, will depend on your individual careers and who you are. My task today is to talk to you about the future of vocational training, given where we are. I'm of the strong belief that you don't need a degree to have a wonderful life. We need people who will make sure that our trains run on time, who will fix our railway systems, who will make sure that our robots and traffic lights to the overseas gas work. Fitters die in tool makers. People will ensure that our roads are filled up. That doesn't get done by engineers. It gets done by people with vocational skills. There's a famous joke: how many professors does it take to change a light bulb? None, because their students do it for them. We are not the practical people. So the reality of the matter is that we do need, in this climate of high unemployment, people who can get things done. Not who can talk about things, we need to get things done. And it is through vocational training that we can get things done. By adapting to technological advances, we need to foster entrepreneurship, enhance the quality and accessibility of vocational training. Some of us who live in the northern parts of this town, whenever there's a burst pipe, right, or a geyser is not working, the person that fixes you was a technician, Mr. Forslow, who actually learned that on the fly, went to Valtech, as it was called, and now is running a CC and making more money than myself. So that is what I'm talking about. That these are the people we need in society, and some of you must go for those vocational jobs that will make you viable citizens of the future and contribute meaningfully to our country. So as our technology advances, you need to have entrepreneurship. And I'm going to be very firm about this. We need to have local entrepreneurs who come from here, running a business in Soweto. I said Katlehong, but yeah, fine. Who run businesses in Soweto. Businessmen from whom you sell, go to local spaza, it must be a South African. I'm sorry, I have to say it. That when I was young, it was Babungwenya that sold us milk. It was that ran a butchery. Who grew up, who knew the kids that came to, when we didn't have money to pay, they would say, Emma Pili Wanaka, Kitlau, with like 2 weeks later. Do you understand? So I'm not saying that it should be an exclusive economy. It must be inclusive, but also we need our own people contributing to that economy. You can't wait for grants. You need to have your initiative. In recent years, technological advancements have revolutionized industries and created new opportunities. As I'm talking to you now, new industries and new jobs are being created, and they're not being created here. They're created in countries that are advanced. In America, in the Silicon Valley, you've got what is called now artificial intelligence. You know, some of us have real intelligence, yeah? But there is artificial intelligence of machines, of robots that can think faster than you. And Africa is falling behind. As the program director mentioned that you've got this advance in what is called quantum computing. I'll give you an example. In 1969, there was a landing of a man on the moon. You've heard of that, right? Neil Armstrong. Just think about it. The computer that was required, I mean, the generation on my left here will know everything about it because they observed it. It was a big achievement for humanity. The computers that were needed to take these rockets, goes up in the moon, it turns, and it's called rendezvous and docking and landing and one more step for mankind and so on and so forth, and then back to Earth, was done by a computer with about maybe 5,000 engineers at NASA, and that computer had power which was 1 million times less than this. Now you have power in your hands that is 1 million times more powerful than the power of that rocket, right? So what does that mean? It means that these machines are evolving faster. You have now access to information for good and bad. That information is that in the past we used to wait for. Now it comes to you. Now what young people have is that they get exposed to things that they ought not to be exposed to, and that causes mental unwellness. I was talking to Dr. Rataimane, who spoke about, Professor Rataimane, who spoke about mental unwellness as a global problem. So these technological changes expose us to things like what you call these influencers, right, who actually create a world that you don't belong to, and your self-esteem crashes. So there's a lot of issues we've got to solve in managing this technology exponential. In terms of the jobs that you need to have, we need to partner, create vocational and educational institutions and industries to work together to facilitate internship, that when you finish your matric, even during the course of your matric, you need to go, when I was young, there was a school called Ambach School for children who actually were, had those skills that we need for society. And I think we need to relook that model. I don't have I'm not a policymaker, I'm just an academic, so I've got the academic freedom to speak my mind. But we need to relook that model. We need to relook colleges that foster a particular craft, teacher training colleges that train technicians and engineers and tool and die makers. And then, of course, there will be a role for the academic part. In actual fact, proof shows that, and history shows that in the 1940s, with the end of World War II, Germany was destroyed. It was in pieces, so was Japan. Guess what created Germany by 1965 to now even come close to overtaking the UK as the largest economy? It was because Germans had what they call in German Fachschule, like Afrikaans, Fach, trade schools. It is not trade schools that created that economic miracle. We need to actually have schools where young people at the age of 12 can have a form of streaming them into vocation. Because at VET, we have 5,000 places for 80,000 applicants. So now what happens to the rest of these children? They go and reroute traffic in Joburg when lights are off, and which is quite sad. So we need to have an opening of all these opportunities of young people who will be entrepreneurial, who will be able to, without even needing a degree, to form their own Google, to form an African-made Facebook that will speak to our challenges. I think as I close, I'd like to say that the future of vocational education and training in South Africa holds immense potential to address the challenges of skills development, entrepreneurship, and joblessness, given the fact that 60% of our young people, if I understand this correctly, are jobless. By adapting to the technological advancements, fostering an entrepreneurial mindset, yes, you can do it yourself. Don't have to wait for that grant, but you can actually generate your own grant by selling amando pekas. That's how we made Nyugu, selling peanuts. Just have that initiative. Don't wait for things to come to you. Okay, just grab that. Carpe diem, grab the day. We need to enhance the accessibility and quality of vocational training. I do believe that South Africa, if we do that, basic things, nothing else, no major policy, just tweak a few things here and there and get things done, we can prepare for the jobs of the future. We need to be targeted, we need to be focused, we need to ensure that we've got a curriculum that speaks to that. We need industry to help us in that regard. And In this country of ours, despite the challenges, the pastor opened up with a prayer that was a cry for help. Pastor, I can say that this country of ours is an exemplar of resilience. Many of you have fought against all odds in your lives. We have shown that great South African grit, resilience, and focus. I am a naive optimist, and therefore I do see a great future. I do see great opportunities and challenges which lie ahead of you. You are symbols and majesty of what this country can offer. Our hopes of those that have supported you lie on your shoulders. I will conclude by an extract that I've taken from the speech of the late Robert Senate Kennedy, who gave it at UCT in 1966, called Ripples of Hope. Comfort is not the road history has marked for us. There's a Chinese curse which say, may we live in interesting times. Like it or not, we live in interesting times. There are times of danger and uncertainty, but also the times of the most creative of any time in the history of mankind. And therefore, here will ultimately be judged by yourself on the effort that you have contributed to building a new world, society of beauty, to the extent that your ideals and goals will have contributed in shaping that effort. As I conclude from the speech, which is reflective of that class of 1976, it goes as following. It is from the numberless and diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time an individual stands up for an ideal or acts to improve a lot of others and strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And each tiny ripple of hope will cross each other from a different million corners and centers of energy and daring. Those ripples will build a massive current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. So for each and every one of you is that ripple of hope. See yourself as a ripple of hope that will coalesce with other ripples and join the other ripples to form a tidal wave that will take us to the future that our founding fathers who fought for this country dreamt for. I thank you, and good luck, and may the force be with you. Thank you.
Shall we please give him another round of applause? So relevant, so relevant. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to go a little bit back into the program. We had Ms. Lalele introduce some guests, but in the meantime, some have just arrived, others were here, we just overlooked them. I'm sorry for that. So we need to know who's in our midst, especially if they've come from far and wide, and also that they had other things to do, but they chose to be here today. So, in no order of importance, I'd like to welcome as well, because others were already welcome, Professor Rataimani. Can you stand? Let them see you. Also an alumni. Tagaga. This gentleman I haven't seen, I'd love to see, Mr. Sekheto Shavangani, who is the Deputy Principal currently of Morris. Where is he? He's not here? He's outside of the office, he's coming. Oh, okay. I thought, when I call them, at least I'll be able to put a face to them, yes. Of course, Mr. D. Mashinini is here, Tsietse's brother. Professor Padile Khosla joined us. You're also welcome. Other people who've also since joined us, Professor Inos Ngujani. Oh, nice to see you. Advocate Khomotso Moroka. Where is she? Advocate Ike Khumalo. Mr. Ish Mkabele. No, the handwriting. Ish Mkabele. Let me say it properly. No, it's the handwriting that Ekopatsuarelo, the person who wrote here. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. And whoever else we have not introduced, we have not recognized, please feel welcome. Everybody is welcome. No matter where you came from, whether you're a professor, whether you're a resident, whether you're a student from Maurice Isaacson, please do feel welcome. At this juncture, thank you. At this juncture, I'd like to call the poet. I'm told he's going to come from the door. Mr. Manaka.
We love before we die, our feelings bleed before we cry. We may be blind, but we can see shadows walking on clouds in the sky as the sun intensifies its flames and burn quickly from our names. Our hearing might not be accurate, though we listen to anger flapping its wings of pain on two-colored lips. We may be weak in our movement, but time runs with us through drums in our hearts, calling ancestors to guide our lives as we journey through the wilderness, leaving behind sadness. Africa, we are reflections of reality, providing light inside a mental cave and showing truth from illusion. We existed between chaos, load shedding, and corruption. Piercing through smoky spaces with our heavenly voices and shouting, Africa, we are alive. We have been alive before reality slayed our backs, scarred our pride. And here we stand, Africa, in the center of attention, breaking chains that enslaved our brains, the same chains that distorted our speeches. Yet we personally spoke to Kamat when the world denied to listen to our poetic sounds, tunneled through a voice that echoed and echoed. Mountains to stones, hey. We brought warmth into cold homes. We are more than names on your page, my friend. We are more than names on your page. Listen to the gumboot in our voices as we dance jazz to Bakara, hip-hop with white to speak English to Tam to the wind moves. Woo! To our rhythm. The energy in our talents is priceless, yes? The energy in our talents. In our hearts, no. We are not the ornaments on your doors. We are the untouchable cause of Mali, Marvin, Dylan, Taiwan, Rosingana, Sis of Jana Paras, Ronash, Samantik, Tapoman, Sakane Bigo, Tiro, Henrik, their music in your books. Descendant of the Creek where rhythm knows my name. Yanama, Kumela, Kafapu, Pasele, the Hotelash, the truth about nature is that it never lies. So it's in your nature to be, my sister. It's in your nature to be. Our children will never be afraid of art. Yeah! Ooh, no, hello. Oh,
Can we give him another round of applause? I've been told that there are colleges overseas where they teach Ubuntu as a philosophy. But the sad thing is that we, the people who own the concept of Ubuntu, we have forgotten about it. And we are not doing anything about reviving it, which is unfortunately a reflection of the times we are living in. But on this particular occasion, I must say, all of us are making an attempt of remembering that if you don't know where you're coming from, you will not know where you are going. Because so we should always keep that in mind. Now my next guest, before I introduce my next speaker, keynote speaker, I forgot to introduce our sister here, all the way from the US of A, Monica Swan, who's visiting us today. Can you please stand? Let us give you a South African welcome. She's also a professor in the same league as Professor Rataimani, so he decided to bring her today to have a taste of how we live as the people of Mzansi. Our next guest is known to all of us, especially on TV. When he was the statistician of South Africa, I used to see him a lot there on TV. And Tatele Hotla, people of our color, we don't care about statistics. And I don't know how we are going to progress if we don't care about statistics. We don't care how many children we bring in the world. They will see how to finish. We don't plan what their future is going to be. If we have the statistics that are not you, because all we care is that granted over But what after the grant? And then where's Ali? I'm a mother of 3. I have a 40-year plus. There are my 2 boys there, 35 and 32. Guys, I'm still mothering them. At that age, so you can imagine when they are 5 or 10 and with the high rate of unemployment we are having, that you must help us, can it? Let us blend in Totsarona. As I say, Ntatele Hotla doesn't need a lot of introduction, but it's my role to Diti Kaba Kaba. Yabo? Dinini Gama Kaba Nchinchi. Kyali Rensa ya nongorke mo South African in Lanka Parasigana, Markwam. Yeah. Ntate Padile Hotla has got so many qualifications. And if I can go through the entire 3 or 5 pages, none of you will be able to go home today. So I'll just go through some of his qualifications. University of Ghana, where he did his population studies, which we know him about. National University of Lesotho, he did economics and stats. College and university attended. Also Harvard Business School. University of Stellenbosch, where he did business. He has a lot of awards, honorary degrees, 1 in public service, another one in commerce, conferred by the University of Stellenbosch, an honorary doctorate of science, confirmed by the University of Natal. So as you can see, he studied more higher, he studied in the continent in Ghana, he went overseas. One time I asked somebody in the shop, so where does this come from? He said, it comes from overseas. I said, where exactly? How, Mama? Overseas, how? What like a ring? So he studied overseas, yeah. Ntate Padile Hotla, let me not waste any more time. Let me just invite you to mesmerize us, as Professor Zebulon did, about your part in addressing bohloko ba rona ba unemployment in South Africa. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And as I came in, I was very impressed by the young man I met. He said, we waited too long for you. And I tried to give several excuses. He was insistent, and I felt that we have a future. But as it's customary, I wasn't aware that there would be an accident along the road. And as I took a different turn, time started slipping by. And that is why I arrived late. The whole N1 was blocked, and I had to go towards Krugerstop and took a detour. So my apologies for arriving late. But I got a tongue lashing from a young man who was there to receive me, and I was very happy. I was unhappy about the tongue lashing, but I was very happy about the firmness, so that we can get things done in South Africa. Daddy, you know, we worked together during the census of '96. The Mashinini family that bore us Tsietse 66 years ago, those not yet born and to be born, students of Maurice Isaacson High School, alumni of Maurice Isaacson High School, Miss Lerato Tlalele, LRC President of Maurice Isaacson High School, Ambassador MG, Professor Zebulon Vilagasi, the organizing committee of Tsietse Mashinini Memorial Lecture, the Soweto community, I acknowledge and greet you. The Bapedi have a saying, to those not yet born and to be born, that Hagaholo sina mabala, haifufa insu, mabala analidi hagana. Success of a leader is not in herself or himself. Success is seen in their succession. This Sepedi idiom places the burden of trust on future generations. How those not yet born manage public affairs, is what is the burden. My lecture embeds this Hagaholo philosophy as a principle and hope to guide us in our current as we reflect on our management of public affairs. For Tsietse Mashinini was a man of matters public progress, a man because his youth was stolen and he aged at meteoric speed. He aged and passed on to the next world, leaving a massive impact on South Africa. The question is, how do we embrace this impact? Tsietse Mashinini would be exactly 66 years and 5 months today, had he not perished in the far lands of Guinea in 1990 at the tender age of 33. Him and his young lions, his student comrades, a number gathered here, a number sleeping the terminal sleep with him gazing over us, mobilized themselves in the most profound of formations, hitherto not witnessed anywhere in the world, where in 1976, at the age of 19 for Tsietse, but the average age came to 13 as the movement engulfed all schools, and Hector Peterson lost his life at only 14 years old. They shook the roots of apartheid, and not only to reset an irreversible path to freedom, but fundamentally accelerated it. They brought an indelible visibility to struggle. They juvenilized an immense presence of Black South Africa internationally, and mostly densified their presence in the frontline states. To try to establish relevance of why I have been asked to speak today is perhaps of my coming from the mountain kingdom of Lesotho, which became in good part the epicenter of refuge and an intellectual home for the fleeing youth. Perhaps it is this line of connection that qualifies me to address this, the 10th annual Tsietse Mashinini lecture, or is it perhaps my long presence in South Africa and the rare privilege of being the mbongi of secrets of the lives of South African lives? Who we are, how we get born, how we live, work, play, and die has been my being an mbongi. The strange phenomenon of numbers is that, like Lembede and Biko before Mashinini, died at the same age as that of Lembede, who died in 1947, also aged 33 years, and Biko, who was assassinated a year later and perished at the age of 31. Lembede's comrades, who were at the formation of the Youth League, went on to live an age up to 3 times that of Lembede. These were Ndate Dan Tlome, 1919 to 1992, Ndate Oliver Tambo, 1917 to 1993, Ndate Ashley Mda, 1916 to 1993, Ndate Jordan Kush Ngubani, 1917 to 1995, Ndate Walter Sisulu, 1912 to 2003, Ndate David Bupape, 1915 to 2004, Mele Ellen Kuzwayo, 1914 to 2006, Me Albertina Sisulu, 1918 to 2011, and Ndate Nelson Mandela, 1918 to 2013. They were able to keep the credo of freedom in our lifetime alive. Their dream that was set in motion in 1944, a year before the end of the Second World War, was waning. The might of the apartheid was at its highest with the historic inauguration of homeland authorities, with the independence of the TBV state. Tsietse Mashinini and his comrades rekindled the hope and ensured that the path to freedom would be shortened to 14 years. In February 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison and political parties were unbanned. It was at this point that Tsietse Mashinini rested. His mission was enjoined with that of Lembede in 1944, and freedom in their lifetime was accomplished. The question to those of us still alive is, what are we doing with the political freedom that those whose life was short but impactful created for us? Let us consider the fact that a militant high school youth of 1976, who undoubtedly rekindled the spirit of overthrowing the colonial apartheid government, would be, on the average, 65 years oldies of today that are gathered here. These youth were politically inspired by their creative revolutionary elder counterparts in the universities whose age would range between 70 and 75 on the average today. It must be heartbreaking for many of these men and women to look around the townships and their villages that were their battlefields and source of their early education, to witness the extent of the social decay that is undergirded by economic exclusion, which ironically intensified following the apparent gain in political inclusiveness after 1994. Did the youth drop the ball, or was their struggle met with an almost fatal disruption given the persistence of their and their community's economic exclusion about 5 decades later? Has the 1976 youth since been turncoats when followed in the path of the then colonial apartheid tolerant Bantustan and black urban councillors, whom they regarded as lackeys and outright sellouts then? Any memorial lecture about Tsietse Mashinini cannot possibly be regarded as sound unless it makes an honest attempt to answer these and similar questions. My lecture today is not an attempt to answer these and similar questions. My lecture today is not geared towards any direct answers to these questions. Neither is it deliberately designed to skirt around them. My attempt to answer this simple but often avoided questions lies in the detail of what I have to say. Introduced in our lexicon immediately after June 1976 was the 1976 generation, the 1976 generation as a lost generation. Today, as we sit and reflect, having 6 decades and more, we look very empty. Give a dog a bad name and hang him. You know, this thing is moving faster than I think. In the process, seeing the destruction of education, we did not see the rekindling of the spirit and germination of freedom. Through such a lens of rekindling and germination of freedom would arise, what do we do to education? What do we do to economy? What do we do to health? And what do we do to social life? These should be the questions imprinted in our minds as the reality of closure of schools and businesses, the imminent disappearance of the next generation into far-flung lands requires a deeper plan. That would pose the question, what is it that we, the Dihakana, do as beneficiaries of colorfulness that Hagaholo bestowed on us? "33 years after the demise of Mashinini, education in South Africa has deteriorated to levels worse than what Mashinini fought for. The state of our centers of learning have become hotbeds of drugs that destroy the future of children. The culture of teaching and learning has faded fastest. Riches and bling have replaced right thought and empathy that marked the lives of Soweto. In his book, I Am a Man, Jerry Mufugeng Wamaketa narrates life of the 60s in Soweto and how the elders took care of matters, that the Shebeen became the center of learning, and how his mother's Shebeen became a school of life for him. His rendition of the hard life that he led shows how Soweto elders were poised for victory over adversity, leading a purposeful life in a purposeless environment. The class of 1976, led by Tsietse Mashinini, led this purposeful life in a purposeless environment. But alas, 30 years after his demise, the same issues he fought for emerged as the feast must fall, as the struggle for education continued in 2016. Our educational policies lack the needed design that ensures that doors of learning are open. As an illustration, the efficiency and effectiveness index of black performance relative to white performance at university has deteriorated from a 1 to 1.2 for every white in the 70s. Would have graduated for every one black proportionate amongst black population that graduated, there would be 1.2 whites within as a proportion of their population that would have graduated. This deteriorated in the 70s. This deteriorated to 1 for every black that graduates today, to 6 as a proportion of their population amongst whites 20 years into democracy. and the fees must fall movement was an outcome of this deplorable deterioration. The proportions within population group are such that for every black graduate, there were 1 to 2 white graduates, proportionately in the 70s. And in the current, for every 1 black graduate, there are 6 white graduates graduating proportionately. And this reflects the rapid deterioration of cohort after cohort of black entrants into university education. This is not a reflection that blacks are stupid, but at the center is the utterly hopeless support systems to blacks once they qualify to enter university. Be it bursary or living conditions at home. This is what Mashinini fought for. We have become a crisis-ridden country. Our memories of the oft repeatedly highlighted triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality have no sooner been now flooded with the replacement of the triple challenges by a new recent triple challenge. And that triple challenge fad is labeled as energy, crime, and logistics, all wrought unto ourselves, by ourselves, and to which a crisis committee has now been formed on Friday. The list of lamentable and monumental failures is too long, and most crucial and important is that of youth unemployment. The question is, what would have Tsietse Mashinini done when faced with this crisis? And given what seems Tsietse's cohorts would have understood, that freedom in our lifetime is a crucial requirement, they therefore planned in the details based on the impact they desired and defined. They knew that their actions would speed up the pace towards freedom, and indeed within 14 years, they had brought apartheid to the negotiation tables. Political prisoners were released in 1990, and the path to freedom was set, culminating in democracy in 1994. Outplanning the detail, but knowing the situation where South Africa planning systems are back of the envelope calculations, I would implore robust tools of foresight and future proof that capture the loss of emotions, capture the loss of motion of economics, and embed them as the guiding light. Fortunately, this exercise has been undertaken, that I'm talking about, has been undertaken already under the Alumni scenarios, South Africa 2030, through applied development research solutions, which showed that a different path is possible in the country, one that can reduce unemployment, grow the economy, and get better outcomes in social cohesion. But sadly, this is ignored by government policy regime. Secondly, we have to realize the coal energy systems of electricity excluded the blacks. The nuclear energy systems not only excluded the blacks, but on the eve of democracy, this capability was snatched out of South Africa, and the new government also allowed it. To our shores have emerged new energy systems, thanks to one of the class of 1976, Emojalefa Mofokeng from Ituato. His home is in Orange Farm, but he's based in Toronto. He has been searching and found Dr. Professor Isaacson, whose energy system called M-Cycle is named after Isaacson, who is bringing this new civilization. South Africa dare not lose out on this frontier energy based on Tesla, that there is free energy in the air. Deploying indirect evaporative cooling to below wet bulb to dew point unleashes freely available energy to the globe. The core difference is that the possibility of this being in South Africa is nigh. This will change the education system to more empowering energy. Will create the space for new and massified real jobs and jobs for the future. The convergence of this technology that unleashes abundance energy combined with information technology that has demonstrated that data is non-rival, ultimately defy the laws of scarcity, but unleashes the laws of preponderance. Central, let us remember science needs empathy. Our today's politics lack empathy. Mashinini led with empathy, and that is why his 33 years of life have been so impactful. What we need is not the so-tired theory of political will. Let us remember those who lack empathy cannot, out of nowhere, imbue political will. The parent of political will is empathy. Do not expect those who lack this property of empathy to give you what they do not have. Everyone dispenses what they have. They can only grant what they have. Lembede had men and women of principle who imbued empathy and kept the promise alive. Bigo embodied empathy, and Mashinini exuded empathy. They have all shown that short lives, regrettable to us as family and society as this can be, does not mean short-changed lives. Because in them, we can read empathy of our politics. Because in them, we can read empathy that our politics must be driven by science because it is a subject steeped in empathy. These short-lived stalwarts are the classical Bapedi Haga Holosina Mabala, Haifufa Insu, Mabala Analdi Hagana. This is Tsietse Mashinini's message to us today. Thank you very much.
Science needs empathy. Political will needs empathy. I've never heard of that, but it sounds like something I've always known. Let's give him another round of applause, please. I'm going to do what all program directors do. Ke bue ntho e ke batlang ho e bua le nna. There is a deterioration in the appreciation of African languages in our country. And a lot of the young people think that it's going to make them better. You see this thing about empathy. O sa tsebe puo ya hao. O sa tsebe mo o tswang. O sa tsebe meetlo ya hao. And then you even lack expressions that are unique, like the ones then that they padile khotla ntsa tla ka tsona are ka Sepedi ho thwe. What do you think you're going to become as a human being in life? O tla ba yona tamati sauce. Tla be tsamaya ro tshela everywhere, di chips, dijo tse pheuweng tse sa pheuwang, because you will not be rooted anywhere. The biggest contribution of Nelson Mandela did not come from him being a lawyer. It came from his upbringing. Whichever of the two. When he was sitting in the royal crawl, the royal family, explaining how disputes are discussed by the royal family. And he grew up with that. And as he grew up, he included it, he integrated it into his whole being, and the Ubuntu that went with it, and so on. Now we think that re ka re really rudderless, re sena di roots, and then we can bring something into our society. No, it doesn't work like that. When I went to Morris Isaacson in 1974, it's because ne ke hlaha Lesotho, mo ne ke kena sekolo teng St. Agnes. And my father was living in Durban, which meant ke tshwanetse ke ithute Sezulu. Ka hana ka re, Soweto ho na le dikolo tse rutang Sesotho. That's how I came to Morris. And it was our culture, our empathy from our culture, the love of our people that made us the people that we became. So once they are removing our languages, they are also removing our culture. And once they remove our culture, we are going to be rudderless, we are going to be without roots, we are not going to know who we are, and all we'll care about, I mean, what can money do for you? How far can money take you? It can only take you this far. It can't create this empathy, it can't create family, it can't create community, it can't create society. So na, kiliskos MG, otswalwang ke maqhosa a buang Sesotho, ke batla o le jwetsa hore ha re se ra lahla dipuo tsa rona. Le problem ene ya rona ya unemployment. Ndate, why do we have unemployment in Ghana when we have 11 official languages? Why don't we learn our languages? And then we have interpreters and translators in parliament, in government, but to some rona ba sa tsebeng Sekgowa and so on. Why re batla ntho tsa batho ba bang? When the Germans rebuilt their country, they did it in German, in their own country. Ba qala di company tsena tsa dikoloi tse ntle tsena tse re di ratang rona le bokgomo tse Morocco. Jwale o tla e plana jwang koloi o sa utlwisisi puo e o ithutang ka yona. Look at those children who used to make those koloi tsa ditrata in the location. Where did they go to school? In the family. So nna ke batla hore le nna ke eketse sente ya ka ke I took advantage ya bo program director ba ka ka ha re ithuteng dipuo tsa rona. Sevenda, let's write it, let's read it. Setsonga, let's write it, let's read it. Let's make sure our own country, in government, you get the form, so that everybody can have access to that information. All the time, and in the process, we cheat them. See that lady who asks you at the bank, Mama, then you just tell them half of the information. Where is the dignity? Where is the dignity? So, our languages are important because they are vehicles of our culture. The American language is the vehicle of that culture, yeah, the hot dogs. And that thing ends like Michael Jackson. That's what that culture is about. In our own cultures that promote many things, including the rare things such as empathy. Really, I thank you for that empathy. Science goes with empathy. We have a professor here who's from Wits, who's in the science angle, but empathy high from his speech. You could tell that he knows what's happening in the community and he cares about what's happening in the community because, as Ndate Padilo Khotla says, science must also go with empathy. Now I come to a time when I'm going to ask Renali a roving mic. Aha, Tato, you're going to help me. How many minutes? I like to be guided.
Well, let's see how far the questions go for now. Let's say in the first 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll see.
First 20 minutes.
Yes.
So, Ratlanka, 3 questions at a time. Somebody will be keeping the time for us. The first 3 questions, A ke re wena ntate wa Mike o tla be ya o tla bo itsamaisa. So the floor is yours. Question number 2, so that we have 3 at a time so we don't waste time. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon to everyone and all protocol observed. And I feel that Ntate Padile Hotla can't just escape like that. And I want to ask this question, coming from Soweto, knowing that in Soweto we carried this country with similar townships like Bo, Katlehong, Davidson, all the townships that were under apartheid directly when other people were in homelands enjoying apartheid benefits. But today, Sowetans are excluded from economy. And now, with Padile Hotla saying, I understand that now we're talking free trade, that you must open borders and all that. So now, most people are not working in South Africa. Their jobs have been taken by people who did not struggle with us. People who came here, we had their own PEE, we had their own freedom, they messed up their own countries. Tate Padile Hotla is a statistician. Somebody can do that job with a junior degree in South Africa. You don't need to be a doctor to do that. Coming from Lesotho, taking that job, how does it feel when people from Lesotho coming here, taking jobs, knowing that they mistreated our people? Ambassador here probably was staying in a camp. He was not gallivanting freely like foreigners we see today. They are doing all sorts of businesses that they're not supposed to do. They are not scarce skills. They're not coming here to be nuclear physicists. They're selling potatoes. They're doing exactly what we were doing before, the spaza shops. What's so rare about spaza shops? Hairstyling, you know. So the question is that, he says, what's the question? How does it feel? You know, is it fair for people to come from foreign states or foreign countries to come and take jobs that are here, housing, beds, hospital beds? Today, when my electricity has been closed in Soweto, I go to city of Joburg. There's somebody who's negotiating with me, is a Zimbabwean. Is that fair?
Thanks, Advocate. I think your point has been made. Let's stick to asking questions. You know, and not making our own speeches. So, duly noted that there is the first time. Go on.
My name is Lula Madlamini. I'd like to, as we've been asked, go straight to the question. Go Prof. Zebulon Vilakazi, as the Vice Chancellor of Wits University, where you produce degrees, you speak and tell us that you don't really need a degree to pretty much make it in life, and there's a huge context behind that. I watched you walking from where you seated, Prof, to make your speech, a few steps with so much vigor and zest for life. You walked back similarly so, and you addressed the young people and spoke a lot to them about entrepreneurship. I know it's not quite part of the topic. I'd like to, for you to please express the importance of that wellness. I think you did somehow touch on it. At 54 years old, you walk with so much vigor, as I said, and as an entrepreneur, there's a lot that the young people will need to know about as part of their wellness. So it's more of a statement, but also a question and a comment. Thank you.
Question is straightforward in terms of curriculum delivery. When can we change this toxic curriculum that we are teaching our children and convert it to what we hear here today of the speeches that has been said? Because this language and the topics that we're talking about, if our children can be taught exactly that, they'll understand exactly where we want to go. The second question is, I appreciate these talks, I appreciate this podium, I appreciate this engagement. But I think we need more of our children who are in school to hear this more, because with us, it's over. You said we are the past and there's a future. So we speak to the future in all this concept of talking about. Those are the only two things that I need to know. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start by asking Prof. Lehotla to answer, followed by Prof.
Oh, I see. I thought I could just try and this person asked the second question. difficult question. The first question, very, very direct, but difficult as well. Asked to a person who comes from Lesotho. Yes.
Some of us all our lives we spent
So the question is very valid because I worked in the Department of Labor in Lesotho. And when we worked in that Department of Labor, there were a number of conditions that we are talking about. A person who would get a work permit would be one who has rare qualifications that the Basotho do not have. But assigned to that would be a number of local people who should take over from that person who comes from elsewhere. And then the training was directed, and the measurement was very clear. So that dealt with the issue around how you deal with rare skills. There is a second issue around it, that oftentimes people come because in their own countries there are difficulties, just as South Africa had difficulties and a number of people had to be in Lesotho. They didn't stay in camps. People stayed with the Moshweshwe philosophy of Lesotho being a sanctuary of many other people prevailed. But it is also true that people elsewhere stayed in camps. The question that is being asked is really around how do we manage immigration in the different areas of skill. In 1976, we studied with a number of people from South Africa. Their parents had businesses here. A shop, a butchery, a milk shop, all those things were there. And it was on the basis of that strength that they could actually go to school. But all those businesses no longer belong to the people of Soweto. And therefore, that's a legitimate question as to how does this economy become inclusive when it excludes Soweto. Something is terribly wrong in our policy architecture, and it has to be fixed. It's a difficult, or rather a rather challenging program to address that, because at times the community gets not irritated, but certainly uneasy about what they see, and at times erupts into attacks with the people that we are communing with. That is an issue that cannot be left on its own. There is a policy space where the government really is failing and pits locals against foreigners. And then the environment is becoming absolutely impossible to govern. This certainly is something that has to be dealt with, and it needs action that is directed. There is no reason why there is not an implementation of an employment policy of shadowing whoever is coming from outside. I started in Bophuthatswana myself when I worked. And when I got there, I said, no, I'm not going to die in this position. I have to create many more people that will replace me, that are local. And when I left Mafikeng and came to Pretoria, my space was taken by a local. When I was in office for 17 years, in 1996, when we recruited the person who is now the Statistician General, in that interview, I said to the colleagues, Mark Walk, and I said, we have a future Statistician General here. I still knew that I still have to have my number of years, which I started in 2000. And for 17 years, I was Statistician General. You cannot leave succession to chance. You can't. If you do that, you get all kinds of wrong things happening. Especially to key positions that require nationals. I acquired South African citizenship in 1993, having stayed in Botswana for almost a number of years. Why I ended up there is a story of another day. I was running away from Lesotho, coming into an apartheid system. So there are many dynamics in the space that we have to deal with, but we have to confront those things. But thank you very much for asking that question. On the question of curricula, indeed, curricula has to change. I was very happy, Professor Vilakazi, that you talked about AMBA. When I finished matric, I had a scholarship to India to go and do civil engineering. But I had to start at Fogoti in Lesotho for a year to go and, there was even an allowance of 180 rand a month in 1976. It was a lot of money. But then I had an admission also at the University of Lesotho. So there was an evening I went there, and then there was a very nice discotheque. And I never left the National University of Lesotho. I often ask myself whether I made the right choice or I didn't. But thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think I'll also I'll be very brief in responding to these questions. I'm a fast talker, as you can tell. I started the last one on Viga. I don't know whether it still happens here. From the, we had physical education schools. My competition, Tsietse, with other schools, Phuthanang versus Tlakula. Football, martial arts classes were formed. My brother is here, who's a brown belt in karate, So there was a culture of vigorous physical activity that led to a healthy mind. I walk around in my hometown, Spruit, see that, the school where there was a ground, you call it a ground, and netball, baseball, and so on, and softball, net. I asked whether, grass is growing, and I asked my nephew that do we still have competitions where schools competed in athletics, Silch. And therein lies the problem. You see kids who are like, who look even my age now for reasons that you know about this poison that has entered our community. I see kids who could be my children, or and that's a problem. Actually, it's hard. We're destroying ourselves. I think that we need political will without it, empathy to solve it, which is why it's 54. Well, I don't know, looks can be deceiving, but I move on. My brother here asked a question, the advocate, it's not a zero-sum game. I understand. I've seen that there's a lot of local entrepreneurship that has been wiped out. That our local, Babungwenya and Babungosi, those business people that own garages that, became our role models, and actually they gave bursaries because they come from that community are no longer there, and there's a problem. However, on a much larger scale as well, we are part of a connected world. As much as we import technology, import cars, there will be people import, because human migration is part of who we are as human beings. All of us left Africa and they evolved to something else and formed different races because human migration is part of us. And in my space where I work, and I lose your country, Prof. America. The strength of a nation is in its ability to attract people. Obviously, there has to be control. At my university where I work, we have professors who come from abroad. They bring in skills. They educate our students. In fact, I was mentored by a Belgian scientist who came here, opened up doors for me. So therefore, we are part of a global knowledge. I mean, you cannot live in a cave. You know, there's a famous story of a Greek writer called Plato who said that people were stuck in a cave. They were too scared of the world. And they only saw the world in terms of the reti, tunes that were projecting. And they were stuck there. When they were released from the cave, they were shocked to see that there's a human being who's in 3 dimensions. So we can't be stuck in a cave. I'm using that story of a cave that we need to be part of a real world, but there has to be law and order, there has to be control. We are part of it's not either or, but I hear your impassion. I feel some of the crises I feel whenever I go to my hometown, but I think you cannot also be stuck in a cave. On curriculum, I mean, that Hote has answered, is that, again, it's the same question, right? That, yes, we need to localize the curriculum, but if you localize the curriculum, also take into account the fact that you import technology. Our children must understand the world of open AI, this generative artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, which is moving very fast. And how do we do that? I mean, you are caught in between the two extremes here. It's like trying to fix an engine while the aeroplane is in motion. So I hear you. This is what we feel, but the reality is that the world of tech, which is, even for Germans, is in English. When I was in France in 1994, everyone spoke French at varsity until even they did their PhDs. And now they're changing to English. The French are realizing that they're losing out on this digital exponential, which is in English. So that's why we find ourselves. You see, that is, our priority is to catch up, Chief. We have to catch up. If we don't catch up, we become slaves. If those that are behind technologically are dead, he who controls AI will rule the world and will be in the backwaters of this world if we do not catch up now. And that is my priority number one, as an educator, as a scientist, and as an instructor, as a leader of a university. That's always been my kind of like clarion call and passion. So my answer is not what you wanted, but it's what I believe at least. Thank you.
And while you are searching for the mic, I also have a sixpence. About the question here, Abuti Ike. Abuti Ike, I also have something to share. I think it's easy when you live in Soweto to say Soweto liberated the country. But no. But when you live in Mdantsane and you live in, I don't know, and so on and so on. And this is the sad thing about our history not being told. Because when the history is not being told and is not being written and shared, especially to the general population, then every one of us has their own understanding of just that part, where they were. There were people who were killed in the Bantustans, were against the Bantustan system. So I just want to share that from a distance, it looks like, only people here suffered. But coming to the other question here, control. Our government has failed us in terms of controlling how people move into this country. It's got nothing to do with us having lived outside, because when we were living outside, we were controlled. There were controls not even by the government there, by our own people who said, you are not allowed to go there, you are not allowed to, and the countries had policies also about skills and who works with kind of, you studied at their university, but they wouldn't employ you because they said, you are not a Zimbabwean, you are not a Zambian. So those were the rules, but we've just decided, senze kube kwamagitasbhekane. Yeah, we didn't sell drugs. How could we? Again, I'm telling you that we had controlled. That's what I'm explaining. We were controlled by our own liberation movements. But we come home and there's no control. Exactly. That is where the problem is. And everybody knows there's no control, so they come willy-nilly.
So now we are going to take this round of questions. One of the professors, I'm not going to say which, is going to have to go after this round of questions. Right? So you know what happens again. When they go out, you ambush them. Also, opportunities, questions and all that. Then only Mabra, question from you.
Thank you, Program Director. I've taken home the question of empathy and political will. I've made an observation in this country, probably most of you are drivers, because I want to ask a question. With so many drivers in South Africa, twice South Africa has had a machine printing the driver's license cards breaking down. And each time it breaks down, the country waits for repair that must be taken to Germany and then come back. In the interim, when the machine is not sorted out yet, the country waits. The reflection I'm trying to ask here, what goes on in the state of the mind of a country that has twice experienced such a thing, and it happens, that they have citizens who drive, who are complied to get driver's licenses, but when the machine breaks down, Germany is the answer in 2023.
Greetings to everybody, all protocol observed. Hello, my surname is Khatebe. I was impressed about the sister or program director who was speaking about our own languages. We seem to sikhuluma isilungu sisikhipe ngamakhala. You know, whilst our languages are like so abekele sayidini. That is also what is worrying me, as you have said. This is just a comment for now, ma'am. I want to ask about Mr. Likhutla, who was a statistician. Lamagama lamakhulu doctor, statistician, general. Sibe ngesizulu lento yini yona leyo nto le. And you were in a platform of influence. We saw you on TV whilst you were in that position. There were no changes that you've made. You were also talking about unemployed youth and all those things. Whilst there were no changes, I was impressed with the professor who was talking about, in those days, I was 14 years in June 16, we had what we call Imkirikach, Soweto, where I was doing standard 5, where we were taking Amabas, Tsietse and Ninesfield, where we were trained. You choose whatever trade that you want to go to. I choose woodwork, but I realized then I choose bricklaying. So, since we've got people here, advocates, learned people, academic people, people of influence, can't we influence those people in the government to bring back those things where learners will be sent to those places so that they learn the skill? Because today they talk about skill. You know, which is me now, I'm just a police officer. I can't even fix or put a brick, or I know nothing. All what I know is to arrest people. That's all what I know. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof. Ntate Lehohla, I'm inclined to protect you on this one. From us who have observed you work over the years, you managed your mandate very well. So I am protecting you from responding to those utterances that have no bearing on your work that you did and your mandate. But of course, being the gentleman that you are, you may want to respond to that question. We have a question from the lady that side. Thank you. But the lecture topic was very clear. Thank you. Oh, this one.
Greetings to everyone and all protocol observed. My name is Mashinini. So, to the academics, I own a company and I love creating jobs. But there's a problem. Abantwana bethu, they come out of the university. It's so painful. They would submit their CVs, submit their academic records. What they do in our universities, it's painful. Bayahlanganisa noma yini. Nje ukuthi umntwana makaphume ane degree university mayithole imali. I'm not sure what is it that you can do in order to change the curriculum yasema universities to suit ama job akhona or economy yase South Africa. So mhlambe ningacacisa kuloko. And then on this one yama languages futhi ambassador, angeke abantwana bethu bawazi our own languages because the teachers who are teaching African languages today, they don't know it. Teachers who are teaching isiZulu abasazi isiZulu because in some universities they are taught by whites. Ama whites afundisa isiZulu. So how can someone teach you your own language? The Zulu that we learned in Namaskula, it's far different from the Zulu samanje. Abazi ngisho izisho abothisha banamhlanje. Abazazi. And the home language is a prerequisite for umntwana to pass. And they fail. What is it that can be done in order to rectify all this ule era esiphila kuyo?
I'm going to hand over to you, the two gentlemen, to respond to the quick 3 questions.
Yes, I'm the one who's got the pressure of time, so I left to leave shortly. That one that was asked by the officer, you know, and I'm not defending, but as a citizen, I used to read some statistics that come from the General Toheli, and I think the statistics of South Africa under his leadership was second to none in the world. His job is not to create jobs. His job is to tell you. His job is to look at the data, information, collect it and say, here's a story. Government implement. His mandate is limited. Like, the job of a university is not to create jobs, it's to educate. Are we educating properly or not? That's the question. And that comes to Mrs. Mams's question at the back about, you know, the preparedness. We are changing our curriculum. As I mentioned, that you've got these new technologies that are coming through. However, I have to say that we do our surveys, vets, maybe it's vets, I'm not speaking for other universities. 96% of people who qualified vets get jobs within the first 6 months of qualifying. So it's 96%, right? They get snapped up by Investec, whatever. So that is maybe the privilege of being versus history. There's a particular privilege here, which I think I'm aware of, and it speaks for only 5,000 students who get into the first year. Maybe other universities don't address that, but there's a history, networks, connections, and so on and so forth. So therefore, yes. Also, despite that, Osmamsi, graduates from whatever university that have a degree or whatever qualification or diploma, whatever, have unemployment which is 5 times less than those who never had tertiary education. So you can tell that statistically, your chance of having employability at the age of 20, 21, whenever you finish, is 5 times less. Sorry, of not being unemployed is 5 times less than had you not taken that opportunity, which is a huge number. So I think let's not also paralyze ourselves with, like, you know, we have to think positive, because if we allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by negativity, we actually only see gloom and doom and we all kind of get paralyzed and we lose hope. And hope leads to misery, and misery leads to people believing in false prophets. So we need to keep our heads up and say, you got a problem, but let's not let our problems paralyze us and repeating these whole stories again. I think we need to be... But I can pick the last one, and I have to take off. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm a slave of time. You know, I'm controlled by time. Thank you. Sorry to lose. Yeah.
How many more questions are we having?
It will depend how long Tate Lehohla will stay, especially since he was a bit late. So I think he'll be able to indulge us. Critically, my colleague will kill me if I don't mention this. On the questionnaire language and teaching in our own language, there's a lecture that we did in 2019. Yeah, Professor Chilisi Marwala, le Professor Pakeng. It's on YouTube. You go there on YouTube and you'll get all the information, some of the questions answered on teaching the subjects in our own language. Thank you.
Did you take this lady's hand? She's been
before, Professor Vilakazi, you want to go through that process now? Yes. Okay.
Oh, so the questions are closed now?
Not yet.
Uh-huh.
Not yet. We'll come to that questions again.
Oh, God, what's that?
Mine is not a very easy job. The looks that you give me, I'm immune to. I've been doing this for years. So, I go through proportionally. The statistician general will assess me on whether I'm doing it properly. Just our small gesture of appreciation, Dr. Vilakazi. The uniform here at the school is Oglingana, exactly. So that's from now on, that's how you can commemorate June 76. Uko uniform like some grown-ups do on the day. Thank you.
Let's hope he's going to be like Gashabu Teles. You know, he always wears that brazier or forte.
Precisely. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be very strict on the topic now. We can ask questions raised on the discussion by Dr. Vilakazi. Ntate Lehohla will see how far he may go in terms of asking them. I need to see 2 hands from here. Sipo, I'm not going to take your hand because you are my friend. It's not going to happen. Not today. I'm going to take 2 hands from here and 1 hand from that side. Yes, you say I'm going to take your hand. I'm going to start with the lady here.
Thank you. My name is Tandega Mamgwev. So this is for the academics and I suppose people who would have an idea of how to fit in the missing middle. Missing middle is usually referred to as people with regards to the income. Now, in my world, missing middle is also the population who have either been retrenched or for whatever reason have become unemployed, and now they are not young enough to qualify for NSFAS, and they have so many years of experience to give back, whether it's in corporate or NGOs, etc. How do those people become employable again? Because we are living in a society of ageism, where I'm actually one of those people. We're living in a society of ageism. We're living in a society that says you're too expensive to be hired. The reason is purely because you do not have that degree that we're looking for, that the younger ones have, and as a result, they are cheaper to be hired because they don't have the experience. How do we fix that issue of the missing middle?
Thank you so much, my sister. Thank you. Great question.
Greetings to everyone. My name is Tumelo. I reside here in White City, Jabavu. I acknowledge the fact that you raised this issue of iambag. To us people, Bala Soweto, it becomes a challenge for us because we do have artisan skills. but there's a visible red tape for us in terms of employment. You'd find some cases that the policy on its own, it doesn't have a geographical control, because we feel people from Soweto that it favors people from certain provinces and it doesn't benefit us. So it becomes a challenge in terms of having the aid to even learn artisan skills, because what's the point of learning artisan skills where else you won't get any employment? Employment favors people, mainly the issue we're having now. We feel that people from Polokwane are benefiting more from artisan skills, of which it doesn't benefit us. So what's the plan to
taken over by Zimbabweans, I can say in that particular fashion. You are sitting with a scared program of drugs in Zimbabwe. Each and every week, or maybe days on daily basis, these young boys who are smoking open, they are stealing each and everything that they come across in our houses. So I just need to understand. I'm not posing a question to anybody at the podium, but we have people here, residents of how do we remedy this particular situation? Because I can remember once the Premier of Gauteng, when he took the office, he said he needs to get a facility whereby he can facilitate all these local guys, local boys, and maybe try to get some education and rehabilitation. We are not making use of the center because it's definitely accommodated by foreign people. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Collection of questions of how we accept, or at least question of missing middle. Both missing middle in the form of not in education and not in employment, but also missing middle in terms of those who have not as yet retired, but they reached retirement age and have skills, but the problem is ageism, which is there. The key issue, I think, in our system that we should really begin to address, and when I was statistician general, I started appealing to my colleagues who were directors general that I'm tired of producing these numbers. I'm tired of measuring Kilimanjaro and nothing is changing on the height of Kilimanjaro. Unemployment is the same, and absolutely there's nothing that looks like a response to what we are seeing. Fundamentally, there are things that are wrong in our policy space. And we need to deal with that fundamental problem. When we look at the Afrikaners and their Ambach,
The AMBAC was connected to ESCOM, was connected to ISCO, was connected. So this infrastructure of SOEs was the way that the government was interfacing with business. At the moment, our politics are just a briefcase. There is no infrastructure that is state-owned that connects with business. So these gaps are fundamentally caused by that problem. And then tenders. So with that culture of tenderpreneurship, it has killed this fundamental interface of privatization. That's the biggest problem that we have. So even private education. So those who can afford will privatize and seclude themselves and leave everybody else. So it's a major problem that we have, that is fundamental. So in the policy design, there is this problem, and we are not going to get out of it until we shift our policy design such that one of the things that was very painful in government has been this outsourcing of cleaning services, of drivers, of this and all that. So as a Director General, having been appointed, you are removed from the task at hand, which is dealing with poverty, inequality, and unemployment. When you have cleaners and drivers and people who guard the environment, they are in your face as the Director General, and they are your conscience. If you outsource that to somebody else, the conscience of government is killed, is dead. I refused to accept that in my office for a long period of time, because I took it that my conscience are these people that are cleaners that I see every day. I have to understand where their children go to school, the drivers and everybody. And then started a program of saying, even if you are a driver, you'll go to school. Now, if we outsource that fundamental thing that we have been fighting on, then we are likely not to achieve the goals we want to achieve. So, at the heart of our problem is, what did we sign up for? For liberation. The hens have come home to roost with high unemployment, high inequality, high levels of poverty, and then the ravaging of the infrastructure, like cables, roads, all these things, and of course the social fiber. And then we cry we want to see a social compact. There are no mechanisms of advancing social compact under those circumstances. Those are alien to Ubuntu completely. Coming to the issue of universities. The government is pitying society against universities. We have a national agenda of nation building. Now, I want to raise an important statistic that as South Africa we seem not, or we keep our eyes close to it. 62% of fathers say they are married against 38% of mothers. Now, that's a very important statistic. That should inform every other government policy. I've tried to put that statistic in front of all the policymakers as this. If we don't take care of this statistic, we are in serious trouble and we are not going to resolve the problems. Now, 62% of fathers say they are married against 38% of mothers. Now, unless these mothers are polyandrous, then it is a difficult problem. Now, so every mother has 2 husbands. Yes. In West Africa, it was that way. In Ghana, they are polyandrous. So a woman marries a number of husbands. But in South Africa, we know that we are polygamous. Our president, Msholozi, has many wives. Now, here is the issue. When it comes to what Tsietse and others were fighting for, not only refusing to be taught in Afrikaans, but ensuring that they get quality education. That quality education that of these 1.2 million children that are born every year, our constitution and our laws say that basic education is a right. And basic education ends in matric, 10 years of schooling or whatever it is. Year in, year out, 800,000 of these children don't make it to matric. Now, there's a fundamental problem there. That there is a promise, but this promise is failed every year. And when the Minister of Education and the President come and talk about results, they say there's an improvement in the results. I said, well, congratulate those who have passed. Don't say there's an improvement in the results. The results have long stayed flat, absolutely flat, year in, year out. And we are producing 800,000 children that actually have to roam the streets. That's the problem. Now, in that problem, then we have 40 years after Tsietse and them led a revolution as students of Fees Must Fall. The Fees Must Fall was about fees must fall. They didn't say fees must fall for the poor or for the rich. They said fees must fall. We have an agenda for nation building. And students are united in saying fees must fall. Government decided to go and nitpick and pay for the poor. When you do that, you divide the national agenda of students and make students for the rich and students for the poor. The evidence that the professor is talking about here is, in 2014, 5% of those who had degrees, only 5% of those who had degrees were unemployed, which is not even 5 times, but almost 7, 8 times lower than those who do not have degrees. So by ensuring that you pay for everybody, you are increasing the base of people who are intellectually equipped to deal with many issues in the country. But because we have been nitpicking around this issue, today that number has doubled to 10%. Now, I want to get back to the issue of 68%, 62% of fathers saying they are married against 38% of mothers. And the issue here, when I made my submission to the Higher Commission, was pay for everyone. First, because there is a national agenda of nation building. Tax everyone who is earning enough or more so that the students are students and they have a student agenda as expressed in Fees Must Fall. Once you start nitpicking this, you do, the students who will always strike are the students from poor families, because the money is not enough. They have to support families somewhere else, and so on and so on. Now they started saying, well, we look at the income of the parents. Now they come to look at the income of the parents, where only 38% of the mothers say they are married. It means the husband has long been sent away. Now, you subject that child to the ravages of what is happening in the split responsibility of those parents. You also subject the woman to the vagaries of this man. And when you do that, you cannot stop gender-based violence. And all these things are connected, and our inability to understand what statistics say is a fundamental. These numbers are telling a tale of how we have to deal with our past and how we have to deal with how we encourage the future. But unfortunately, Lenin, as he says, in 1920, addressing the Bolsheviks, he said there are three enemies. The first enemy is communist conceit, which is pomposity and verboseness, and marching and saying, I'm a communist, without delivering anything. That was 1920. The second is illiteracy. And illiteracy, he says that an illiterate person, that is a person who cannot conceive, who cannot understand, doesn't politics live outside him. That person lives outside politics. And the third is bribery. And where there is bribery, any form of control and anything doesn't work. That's where we are in this country. Our politicians are illiterate, and the bureaucrats are not helping them in making them literate. So we are in that state where we cannot crunch the evidence to show us where the fault lines are. And instead, we have to explain things that are difficult away. Hammanskraal has to be explained away. Everything has to be explained away. The potholes have to be explained away. You see, comrade, this thing of the potholes, let me explain to you, Chief. Now, when we don't work with facts, we cannot confront the things that confront us. This is the central problem that we are facing in the country. We don't have tools of foresight. We don't have future proof. And when we don't have that, even when the president rises or the minister of finance rises, they talk about the inputs, which is the money that is being poured into the system. They don't talk about impact. The president, when he rises, must talk about impact, not any input. Because when we start talking about input, the comrades start saying, what is my bread in that billion and that billion and that billion? But when we talk about impact and say South African children will pass at the rate of 90% and we'll eliminate the 800,000 that fail to reach matric, we'll reduce that number to only 200,000. Nobody can go and steal that. But when we say we'll spend so much money, they're already lining up tenders. Our language creates conditions for this situation we are in. So unless we start addressing our policies, this thing is going to be with us for a very long time. It is etched in empathy, as Tsietse, Mashinini, Nelson Mandela, and all these people were. They had empathy. And when we have empathy, the region of making the wrong decisions, or rather the corrupt decisions, is very reduced. Even if you make wrong decisions, when you have empathy, those wrong decisions can always be corrected. So this is the problem, this is the story of South Africa, that at the very beginning, it's difficult at the family level. And our policies tend to be absolutely unaware of this, and we start pitying society itself, and the society tears itself apart. And the government said we didn't cause it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ntate Lehohla. I have been given clear instructions right now to hand over to our esteemed Masters of Ceremonies. Madam Program Director,
Eh.
it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We just want to ask at least 2 learners to ask some questions. We can't come to Maurice Isaacson and no learner asked us baholo, you know, wanting to know 1 or 2 things. And then thereafter, we will go to the next item, which is handing over of presents. Learners, a boy and a girl. You know what? We mustn't suppress the boy child. We shouldn't promote the girls in such a way that bashimani bataba wu. We should strive for balance. Yeah, a boy and a girl. Where are the boys, Maurice?
Madam Program Director, they have chickened out.
Who have chickened out?
The boys.
Oh.
Yes, and you know, as a result, there is a question that side.
From a boy.
It's a young man.
Oh. Luluna linali she. Okay, no problem. If they are not here, there's nothing we can do.
Let's start that side. She happens to be the PRO of the LRC.
Hey, the acronym sena PRO no.
Public Relation Officer.
Yeah, rebel. Yeah.
Good day, everyone.
I know.
I'm Olwetu Mbata, best known as Fifi. I'm the PRO of the school, which is Public Relation Officer. My question today is about, I had saying he once asked that they should text everyone even higher for education to be paid. In lower level of education, I can see that there's progress, whereas we get free education, free books, and free textbooks. But when we get to universities, some learners can't achieve that goals to reach the point score that they want, so that we can get access to universities. And it becomes a problem because of the households that we come from. Our parents can't provide for every learner in the house. It becomes hard for us to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Okay.
Yeah, you should come to the question now. Yes.
My question is, is the government going to be able to provide for learners who can reach the point score that they want? Or is the government not going to do anything about that? That's my question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And the other question? There's only one mic. Oh, okay.
Good day, everyone. I go by the name of Stella Manamela, and I am the Deputy President of Maurice Isaacson's. So this is my statement. With unemployment rate increase rapidly, and there are a lot of graduates in the country, of which are still unemployed. There is my question. Which fields of work should students study for to upbeat our economy?
Yes, the last question.
Greetings to you all. My name is Babala November, and I'm the RCL of grade 11A. So my question is, in the past, specifically during apartheid, did you have problems such as unemployment, etc., and you fixed those problems only to find out that they are creating more problems?
What is the question?
In the past, during apartheid, did you have problems like unemployment, etc., only to fix them, but they're creating more problems?
Yes, I get you. I get you. Yeah. Ndate, I can answer this one, yeah, apartheid. I can really move off. Okay. Yeah. You know, my daughter, or my granddaughter, There are problems in life that will always be there, right? Even in the Bible, Jesus says, the poor you'll always have amongst you. Our problem in this country is the extent of our problems. The way we let our problems become so huge that they end up on their own creating other problems. And I think that they statistics. When he said, so they say 62% of men are married, but the women say 38% are married. And then he says we have this free education, 1.2 children entering school. Now 800,000 do not qualify. So how will you solve that problem? So our problems are similar, not identical to apartheid, but they have quadrupled, if you like. They have increased tenfold. And my question is one question that hasn't been asked right now. You talked about policy. Of course, we always talk about implementation. This constitution, which we claim is the best in the world, is it suitable for this country? I think that's the question we should be asking. Is it suitable to solve our problems? Does it address our problems? Thank you. Ndate Ukat.
Yes, the question that was asked, you build your case towards free education and then going to university and saying there isn't enough money to take people to university, which is true. But then I understood your question to be, have you achieved the score that allows you to go into university? I don't know whether I got that right. Now, what is the process by which you can upgrade the grades in order that you either go to university or go anywhere you wish to go to? The answer to that question is, we really do not give people sufficient chances to fail. We got to allow that people can fail. And there has to be a second chance as a policy position that allows for that kind of support. But we relegate people too quickly. And also we don't provide enough options that children can actually take. But also the system is not so good to actually provide the kind of ability and possibilities that children should have. So I don't actually have an answer to your question except to really say that our policies seem to be directed at the exceptions rather than at the normal. And that in itself then creates these conditions of exclusion. That's a very big problem that we have. The second question here, oh yes, it was answered. The third question, my mind is also now not. Yes, just say it loud. Uh-huh.
Then the question is, which fields of work should students study for to assist our economy?
I want to answer that question very philosophically, which doesn't help you much. Because what you want to know is what field of study. You see, the world of information technology and the world of economics is very interesting how it has evolved. In Kimberley, DBA has left Kimberley with a hole in Kimberley, and there is a big hole. There's no economic activity around there. Gauteng is left with a number of other holes underground where gold was dug. But it also has a commercial center. In Egypt, along the Nile, villages that established there were driven by agriculture. What I'm saying is that the conglomerates, that is how people settle, how we build cities, has been driven by economic activity, either farming, either mining, either manufacturing, either real estate, as we see Sandton and other places. There is an interesting trend of people going back to the Transkei, to all these other places, probably Lesotho, building big houses there. And they retire from here, and then after 3 years they die around that big house. Now, it's an interesting phenomenon which COVID sprinted forward in very, very interesting ways. And the issue here, and I'm coming to the question that has been emphasized by the chair, the master of ceremonies here, of culture. One of the things that are emerging is what will the agglomerations of the future be driven by? That is, what will be the driver of the cities of the future? Because now with information technology, you can be anywhere and work. You can go and work, stay in your big house in Transkei, and work from there. And those agglomerations, attached to them, is the question of culture, which is cultural economic geography. And that's a very important development that is almost spontaneously led by people who go back to their homes and build big houses across the country. Very, very massive houses are being built there. It means that the classical model of development that drives agglomerations is being diluted by the access to technology and people wanting to go and live where they live and live peacefully. So peace is one, empathy is central to that, and it's no longer the high rises of Sandton. Security will be the main thing when we go for those agglomerations. Distribution of resources will be the main thing because the concentration of central places and urbanization will go. Now, you ask me, what courses should one take? Yes, science is important. Yes, culture is central to reclaiming our values. But there's no course called culture. Doesn't exist. And that culture means the empathy that is resident in Tsietse Mashinini, that is resident in Steve Biko, that is resident in Lembede. That Lembede in 1944 sat with all those other people, all of them lived to the age above 80. Lembede died at 33. But Lembede could trust that these people will carry the struggle forward and freedom will be achieved in their lifetime. And they kept that credo. That's what culture gives you. Do we have those cultural artifacts that capture our history and define us as a nation? Well, you go to Robben Island, it's a sorry state. So, what we have to study is almost infinite and everything. But culture will be central to what has to be studied in societies of the future. Thank you very much.
It matters to have a doctorate. It does matter to have a doctorate. Yeah, and Ndate Padile Hotla is very, very eloquent. Now we've come to a stage of announcements, I think it's about books. And after that, we are going to have gifts. And after that, I saw refreshments somewhere. And then nakia di rata ntho tseno. Yeah, re tla kopa mme Motlatsi. Yeah, about the books. Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for gracing our occasion, and we thank you also for your patience. We are aware the program ya rona is running a little bit late. Just a quick announcement, a message of gratitude to the gentleman who was rendering poetry for us this afternoon, Meg Manaka, Makumela Manaka. When we roped him in as the organizing team, we had quite an engaging discussion with him, a very passionate young man, very passionate about the state of the youth, the country, especially education. So he's not only a poet, but he's also an author. So you can imagine to our marvel as the alumni that he, number one, agreed to come and spend the day with us, render an item, but he even went further to say, Motlatsi and the entire organizing team and your alma mater, Maurice Isaacson, I'm going to donate some books to the library as a token of appreciation. As a token of appreciation, I'm quoting you, to Tsietse Mashinini. So he has donated his books, and what I like about the books, they are so relevant, especially to what was discussed here this afternoon about languages. So it's a collection of poetry, but you know what? It's fantastic because he translated those books into 4 languages. So in Sepedi, in Zulu, Afrikaans, le rona ba ileng gore bra Tsietse, I wonder gore o tlo reng a re ngwana ya no translated into Afrikaans, but I suppose we evolve as a society, right? And then one is in English. So those books, young people, young learners of Maurice, they will be at the library. Please go through them, enjoy them, and let them encourage you to read and also to embrace our languages. So to Meg Manaka, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for inspiring our youth. So the book, Afrikaans, English is available. He'll be bringing it sometime in the coming days to the school. So the title, ke tlo e bala ka Sepedi. Gape nna ke belego ke Mopedi akere. E ngotse Machuba a ke meemelo ye robegilego. And then o ngotse mo gore ke the author. So these are the books that are translated into the 3 languages that I've just explained. So thank you so much, Meg. We really appreciate it, and we definitely hope, and we are just sure they will inspire our young people to, get into the culture of reading. And then lastly, one toma unyako bona re ke tseba Afrikaans na so e re blome ver a gebroke glimlag. And then lastly, my duty this afternoon is to just thank our program director, the Honorable Ambassador Mji. Over the days, we used to say prefect to prefect, head girl to head girl. She was a head girl during her time, Morris Isaacson. And we really need to acknowledge when people come and spend the day with us. Just to go back to what Professor Vilakazi was saying, if we don't embrace where we come from, our townships, our schools here, who is going to do that for us? And to have people of your caliber, Ambassador Mji, and everyone, I see when I cast my eyes around, I see a whole lot of astute alumni of the school. And we say to you, we see you. We see you, you inspire us, and we are thankful that you are behind us and you are supporting us. When these kids see those people who came before us, they get inspired. And we also, in return, get inspired so that they can do the same with the next generation. So I wish to present you with a token of appreciation to say thank you for making time. We hope she'll enjoy the orchids.
Thank you so much.
And some reading in here.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I'll hand over to the rest of the team to do the presentation of gifts. Thank you.
Before I call upon the Deputy Principal, Mr. Sekheto Hlavangwani, I hope it's V, not B, like Mombo Bangu, am I right? To give us a vote of thanks. Now that also my national agenda has caught up with you, the audience, I want you to know that we are organizing in Pretoria workshops to teach those of us who are available how to teach African languages. We'll have three phases of the workshops, which is offered to teach because we know our languages, but this very educated lady said, no, re tshwanetse re le rute gore how do you teach young children to read and write their own languages after the scandal study grade 2, 3, and 4 who can't read or write, and we felt that they need to learn our languages. So those of you who are here in Soweto will be doing first Pretoria, and then we are going to come and also do Soweto. So you can always get my contact details from Motlatsi if you are interested in learning how to teach young children how to read and write in their own languages. Now, she said if we are good, if we're done in that, she'll also teach us how to write books in our languages for our young children. And join us. Our children don't have fathers. And it's part of the problems we are having in the society, and so on. They don't have role figures. So join us when we teach these young children their African languages so that they can see that libondade are part of this thing. And let me thank you all for being such a wonderful audience, to be so well behaved and to be so dynamic, interacting, so that now I can call the deputy principal and ask him please to come and do his vote of thanks. Naksabo Amon. Thank you very much.
Reperil Dumelang Sanbonani Mangwanani. No, I'm just checking. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It was a wonderful day, let me say it. I like this. I am so inspiring by the speakers, professors, doctors, distinguished guests. You know, it was very educational. Yes, it used to be. But for the mere fact that when I look at my learners, today they are in numbers. I really appreciate. So let me first thank the program director. You were very wonderful. I think we have learned a lot on how to run the program like this one. She was so wonderful. Thank you very much for directing this show up to this end. Thank you very much. Thank you, professors. Thank you, doctors. Everybody who is here, I thank you very much. But I just want to say something a bit. I'm not opening anything or any question or delivering a speech. That our learners, please be strong. I'm a history teacher. I used to tell them that, you know, the class of 1976 was very passionate. They knew what they wanted to achieve. Let me be honest, whether one like it or not, whether you are a professor, whether you are a doctor, whether you are a teacher or you are a principal, you cannot correct anything in this world. The only person who can correct is the youth. But now the question is, as youth, as a class of today, 2023, and I know people are hungry, but this I must say it. Let me shorten it. What I want to say is, they are the only people who can correct the situation. If a recommendation can be done by whoever up there, I'm telling you, it will never work. So, my beautiful learners, please be strong. Challenge the situation. Don't be like those people who, of course, when they have problems, they will just close the road and stuff. They don't go to the right offices. Go to the right places, and then, believe me or not, you can correct the situation. I don't want to talk about whatever situation that was alluded here, but they know what I'm talking about because every day I am liaising with them. Thank you very much for being part of this program. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. Just a 1 minute thing. You'll see on the side of the passage, there's catering that has been prepared. Please grab something for yourself on your way out, and then there will be a few of us that will remain behind. The people who've been tasked to deal with our VIPs. Please let us allow our VIPs to go out, and then the rest of us will be served as we go out. Thank you.